All right, good afternoon. It is 4:17 on a beautiful Tuesday afternoon. We are just a little bit over a week away from Thanksgiving. A lot of great stuff going on in the NBA right now, a lot of crazy stuff going on in the NBA right now. As always, joined by my wonderful friend Noah Rubin. Noah, how are you, sir?
Zach, I am doing well, my man. We're almost a month into the NBA season. It's a few weeks, 3 weeks through our first three matchups. Some of my teams are doing pretty well. Others are not doing very well at all, but we're getting to watch basketball. And like you said, a lot has been happening recently, a lot of big time performances, and a good bit of injury news as well.
All right, absolutely. So let's just dive into some of the biggest headlines, the biggest injuries, as we always do before we get into questions. I know there's questions waiting in the queue here. We will get to them. First of all, Tyrese Maxey, Tyrese maximum power, 50 points the other night. Is this the best duo in the NBA right now? Can you name a better 1-2 punch than Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid? And please don't say James Harden and Russell Westbrook because I will vehemently disagree with you.
I can probably name a handful, but as far as how well they're playing right now, I'm totally fine with saying Embiid and Maxi because Maxi has been incredible really the entire season. And I don't know if we talked about it or I'm sure everybody kind of talked about it. The idea was if James Harden is not playing for the 76ers, whether he gets traded or he is just sitting out, like Maxi was going to put up big numbers. And I think he's been even better than we really expected him to be. The 50-point game the other night, but even throughout the season. I was looking up a stat when I was writing a blurb one time. Did you know before the season he had one double-double in his career? And I think he already has like three this year. So he's been fantastic, significantly better than anybody expected. And the managers that were able to get him, I want to say his ADP was around late fifth round. He's been awesome. Like he's one of the steals of the year. I think we had somebody on this ask us who's going to be this year's Lowry Markkinen or this year's SGA, and so far it looks like it's Maxi.
So Maxey, I think we talked about this last week. Maxey, no danger of falling out of the fantasy first round season. He's in that first round conversation rest of the way.
I think that would be best case scenario is having him be as kind of a first round guy, but I think because obviously that's what he's done so far, but I'd say floor of like a third round unless they make some big deal to bring in a third star, in which case I would obviously cut into what he's doing. I know we talked before the season about the idea of James Harden being traded to Chicago for like a Zach LaVine. Now it looks like Zach LaVine, based on recent reports, could be traded this season. So I don't know what Philly would be able to do to swing a trade for Zach LaVine at this point. But if they're able to do something like that, or they're able to bring in another volume scorer, somebody that's going to touch the ball a lot and get up a lot of shots, that would impact Maxi. But that probably won't happen for 3 months. And even when it does, there's no guarantee that it really tanks Maxi's value all that much. Like it'll probably impact him, but not a ton. So I'd say third round the rest of the way is a pretty safe floor.
And while we're talking about Tyrese Maxey, since you are the dynasty guru here, we've seen just how amazing he can be. What is his ceiling in dynasty?
I've seen a lot of other people, whether they're dynasty analysts or just people talking about NBA players, like non-fantasy, even like really vault him up rankings to much higher than I would probably have him at this point, because I think we always kind of knew what, maybe not to this level, but like he was a really good talent, just waiting for a really good situation. And now he's finally getting that. I want to say off the top of my head, I think I had him like a top 50, top 60-ish guy. I'd probably say top 40, maybe top 30 now. But again, he is really benefiting from the situation. If Philly decides, hey, this is the situation that we like and we're going to try and win with this for the next however many years, then yeah, he's going to put up really big numbers. But he is really benefiting from the situation right now. So I would bump him up. I'd say top 30 is probably the highest I would go. And I know I'm probably just being pretty pessimistic about him, and maybe some other people are ready to ride the hype and they're right. I'm not sure. But I would say top 30 is probably pretty safe without actually going through and seeing who is he better than and who is he worse than and where would I actually rank him.
All right, right on. And as you mentioned, there's a number of key injuries right now. Trae Young sitting out tonight. Steph Curry sitting out tonight. Let's see, who else is sitting out tonight? Those are the two biggest ones right off the top of my head. Who are you looking at for tonight? Are you streaming anybody? Are you streaming a Bogdan Bogdanovic? Are you optimistic about Chris Paul or anybody else on Golden State?
Yeah, so the news, so Shams Charania just, I guess a little less than an hour ago, said that it was a knee sprain for Steph, not expected to miss much time, but could end up being a few games. I think based off, like, there wouldn't be a Shams tweet unless it was like for a 1 game absence. Like, I'd imagine it might be a couple games and not a long period of time. So I'd imagine Chris Paul is the starting point guard, and that really does a lot for his value because we've seen him be able to put up a lot of assists even when the shot isn't falling. So he'll have control of the offense. I imagine that, yeah, Chris Paul does take a little bit of a bump. I don't think he's on anybody's waiver wire, but I think he'll have some good production for at least a few games that Steph is out. Hopefully we'll see if Andrew Wiggins can actually do something. He's been very, very disappointing to start the year. And I checked earlier, I have him in every redraft league I am in because I was really high on him. So it's kind of hurt me. So I'm hoping that he can take this opportunity to kind of get things back on track. As far as Trae Young, he's missing tonight's game because his daughter was born yesterday. So it should only be a 1 game absence. Like, congrats to the family. I'd imagine DeJounte Murray slides over to point guard. I would imagine Bogdan Bogdanovic gets the starting nod, and I would probably stream him if he's on the waiver wire. He's never been shy about getting up threes, so should expect him to see a lot of opportunities to do that in the starting unit. Other than that, like, I'm not streaming Patty Mills because Trae Young's not playing. So not a ton of value in Atlanta because DeJounte is going to slide over to point guard. But he should have a big game. He usually does whenever Trae sits out.
All right, and last question before we get into all of the comments rolling in here. Who do you have tonight, Chet or Wemby? Which player has the better night, and which team gets the dub?
I think I can very safely say that the Thunder are going to win this game. Like, I feel very, very confident about saying that. But I think Wemby is probably going to be able to have a little bit of a better game. If you see the injury report, Trey Jones, Keldon Johnson, and Jeremy Sohan are all questionable. So are they all going to miss this game? Probably not. But, like, what if they do and it's literally just Wemby and Devin Vassell trading shots? I think that would be very fun. But I'm going to say Wemby just based on role and opportunity, things like that, though Chet will probably take this one a little bit more personal and a little bit more serious than Wemby will. I think he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder with all the comparisons. So I'm going to say Wemby better numbers, Thunder win.
Yeah, I think I'll have to agree with you. 7 assists on Sunday with Trey Jones out, and of course, Trey Jones inactive tonight. Okay, moving down here. Morning, my dudes. Good morning, Brian B., friend of the show. 10-team, 9-cat head-to-head. Should I drop Killian Hayes and pick up Bilal? We are talking about Washington's own favorite rookie. One of the bright spots for a garbage team. What do you think?
I think I probably would. If I'm not mistaken, I dropped Killian Hayes in the only league I have him rostered. I know he's still the starter, but the upside isn't necessarily there, even though he has had a pretty good start to the season. I don't really see it getting much better, and there's a very real scenario in which it gets significantly worse. But Koulibaly's been awesome. Like the other night, he had 4 threes, 4 steals. I'm riding the upside of the rookie that is going to be playing, like you said, on a bad team or has been playing on a bad team. hoping that he can continue to play well and get more minutes and then just kind of build on that. Maybe get into the starting unit at some point. I don't know, but it seems like either way he's going to play a big role off the bench and provide real value in multiple categories. He's not just going to chip in things here and there, like real defensive and 3-point value, which I don't know if I really expected or many people really expected him to be that good from deep as a rookie. So he's been awesome. I would definitely do that.
All right. And Koulibaly ranked inside the top 80 in per game value over the last week. Is he a must roster in 12-team leagues, or is this just a flash in the pan?
I would say he's a must roster. Obviously, it would kind of depend on what your roster looks like. Like, do you have somebody that's worth dropping? Like, if everybody's better than him, then obviously you're not just doing it just to force it. But yeah, no, I really like his talent, like his upside, and the fact that he's doing it this early, I think is very encouraging. He's definitely a guy I want to get on my roster if I can.
All right, Noah, any update on Sohan and John Collins?
Not from what I've seen, but I know you have been doing the news the last few hours. So if you've seen one that I haven't, then maybe.
There is nothing that I've seen for either of those guys right now. So Jeremy Sohan is questionable tonight, and John Collins is probable tonight. Excuse me. So John Collins is likely to play. Jeremy Sohan, game time decision. Okay, Shaden Sharps, value rest of season in a points league. Oh my! I mean, are we talking about comfortably a top 50 guy rest of season? I mean, is that being too conservative? Does he have a higher ceiling than that?
I think that's probably a fair ceiling. I mean, he's been awesome to start. I know he's benefited a little bit from Anthony Simons being out and Scoot Henderson being out, but I think we kind of talked about it even preseason. Like, he's going to shoot the ball when he's on the floor, like no question about it. Is he a starter when everybody's healthy, or are they going to try and experiment with other lineups where he's able to come off the bench? Doesn't really matter because he's going to play big minutes and shoot the ball a lot. So the other stats that have come along with it have made him valuable in category leagues, or more valuable than maybe many expected. But yeah, I think he's an awesome option, especially for the rest of the season. In points leagues more so than category leagues, but definitely in both.
Okay, and currently ranked 80th in points leagues, but the difference between 80 and 50 is a matter of 4 fantasy points. So certainly, I think that is well within his grasp. Okay. We have another question about the Philadelphia 76ers, a team that we were not entirely sure would be too exciting this season. Sup, guys? What do we think of Batum's usage rest of season? Will it be enough to push top 100, top 75? I don't think top 75, but I think top 100 is, I mean, for as long as Oubre's out, I think top 100 is absolutely on the table.
Yeah, he's a good option to get threes and defensive stats, even at his age. So I think it's kind of, about team fit. Like, he's not going to go out there and get you a ton of rebounds or a ton of points, but he can provide value in those categories where you only need a couple per game to make a difference. So I think that's definitely, like you said, top 100 is possible. And I don't think top 75 is very realistic, though. It's just going to depend on, he's going to continue to start. So the role should be fine because Oubre is going to be out a while. Is anybody else contending for those minutes because they're playing well? We'll see. As of right now, it looks like it's going to be top 100 is very realistic.
Would you trade Kuz and Zub for Franz and Smart in a 9-cat league? I know I would. What do you think about that, Noah? Are you making that deal if you are the Kuz and Zub owner?
Definitely. I think it kind of would depend a little bit on the categories, but I'd rather have Franz than just about anybody else in that trade. And then I'd rather have Marcus Smart than Zubac. So yeah, it's a pretty easy yes for me to take Franz and Smart.
Yeah, don't really see too much upside with Zubats right now. Even over the last week, Mason Plumlee out. Potentially you think he'll have some more minutes, some more usage. 25 minutes, 9 points, 8 rebounds, 1.7 blocks. The blocks are nice, but it doesn't really give you too much else. Okay. Clark Kent says best streamer in a 9-cat head-to-head 12-team league. Cam Reddish, Rui Hachimura, Matisse Tybalt, Jonathan Isaac, Paul Reed, or Sadiq Bey. Where are you leaning here, Noah? I think we can instantly rule Paul Reed out of this discussion, right? I mean, we're not going for Paul Reed.
No, unless Embiid were to not play tonight, because I know he's still questionable. We probably won't know until game time whether he's playing or not. Then maybe he'd be worth a stream for a night. But as far as somebody that's going to be good and good for a little while, I'd probably lean Cam Reddish. And I'm trying to not make this any bias because I love Cam Reddish, but he's been really good the last 2 games. The Lakers have him as a starter with Austin Reeves coming off the bench. I think he had like 17 and 18 points in each of his last 2 games, providing value with threes and steals. LeBron, again, getting the most out of somebody on his team that, we've seen that happen multiple times where players just look better playing with LeBron. So I don't know if this is something where it can kickstart his career and he can eventually go elsewhere and be the top 10 pick that he was, or if this is just going to be some short-term value. We'll see, but it seems like threes and steals, like you can count on him for those.
All right. And I think I would go Matisse Tybalt here. 27 minutes per game over his last 2 plays for a team that will give him plenty of opportunities. All right. Is Armani Brooks worth a hold in Dynasty with the health questions in front of him at point guard? This is obviously talking about the Brooklyn Nets and the point guard concerns there. Armani Brooks, 25 years old. Noah, how are we looking at him from a Dynasty perspective?
It depends on your league size and how many players you roster. If you roster 250 to 300 players, like kind of like the minimum for a dynasty league, then probably not. If you're in a league that rosters like 400 players, then maybe. But I think the idea of Armani Brooks being a guy where you're saying, okay, like the players in front of him have questions and maybe he can end up sneaking in some minutes. I don't really see that happening. Like, I think he's a guy that maybe you hold on to with, Ben Simmons expected to miss some time. I don't think they're going to start deferring to Armani Brooks. Like, they're going to just have Spencer Dinwiddie at point guard and give some playmaking opportunities to guys like Lonnie Walker, Cam Thomas when he's back, obviously, Mikal Bridges. Like, there's other guys. They have Dennis Smith Jr. as well. So I don't think Armani Brooks is a guy where I really have any hope for him being a real producer just because of the situation in front of him, because when he's healthy, he's probably the 4th point guard option. So it would take a lot breaking his way for him to get some minutes.
All right. Beautiful breakdown as always, sir. And we have one more Dynasty question for you. Rank these on performance sustainability. Max Strus, 37, DeAndre Ayton, 21, Jalen Suggs, 69, Killian Hayes, 59. Would you sell high on any of these in particular for Dynasty?
Rank them by sustainability. Well, I would say Suggs 1, Ayton 2, Hayes 3, Strus 4. And I think as far as a sell high, Killian Hayes may be the only sell high here, just because I don't think anybody playing in Dynasty Leagues really thinks that Max Strus is a 4th-round player and a guy that is going to be a 4th-round player for years to come. And I think that kind of applies to all of these guys. Like, most dynasty managers aren't going to say, oh, like this is how they're valued. However, I think Killian Hayes would be the one to sell high on, and maybe you can sell high on Ayton and Suggs as well. But Suggs, I feel like that's a little bit more sustainable just because He's got a good, I think a pretty good situation in Orlando, where he is a starter. He is young and he has the upside to provide value in multiple categories. Can it get much better than 6th-round value? Probably not, at least anytime soon, unless he takes a massive leap. But yeah, you could probably sell high on all of these guys in Dynasty, though I think Suggs is the most sustainable. But it just depends on the managers in your league and how they value them as well.
All right. And one more from Cal Chad. And he even says, last one for me this week. Could Grady D's underwhelming start open the door for Jalen McD to get some run with the team underperforming, or do they just stick with Grady all the way? P.S. Had to rewrite this one because of censors. Yes, we are talking about the one and only Grady D from the Toronto Raptors. What do you think about his upside moving forward? Do you like Jalen McDaniels? Do you care about anybody in Toronto right now? Is this just a fantasy dumpster fire and we should just ignore it?
I think that there's a lot of people I care about in Toronto that play for the Raptors, and I like their value. But I think regular or redraft, I guess, Grady and McDaniels are not guys I'm looking at in standard leagues. I think in Dynasty, then Grady's definitely a guy that I drafted in multiple leagues, multiple startups this summer, and I do like him long term. However, it seems like Toronto has probably, I want to say, 6 guys that really have value with Gary Trent Jr. off the bench, even though he hasn't been great. Pretty much anybody else, you're just hoping to see some flashes of production here and there in the hopes that if an injury happens, they can slide into minutes and provide value, or from a dynasty perspective. But could Jalen McDaniels steal some minutes? Maybe. Is it going to impact many leagues? Probably not.
All right. We are getting questions about some of the worst teams this evening. All right. Will Bilal overtake Denny in the starting 5? I would have to just say yes, gut reaction. What do you think?
I hope so. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I think it should. And I think before the season, we were kind of hoping that it would, and it seemed like it would. But will it? I don't know. Hopefully.
Yes, here's to hoping Washington actually drafted an international player in the first round who will pan out and not be a big-time bust. Sorry, Denny, but you are a bust. And Rui, you were a bust. Okay. Moving down the list. Smart, not smarter than me. Haha. Okay, Mad Face Ninja. That is not a question, but thank you.
Does it have the emoji for you, or does it say person - turquoise - waving?
It just says person - turquoise - waving. Usually I'm pretty good screening these before I put them up on the screen for the world to see, but
I think that's so much better than having the emoji there, but I digress.
I agree with you. Okay, from Thomas, another friend of the show. Thoughts on Tyus? This is Tyus J for all the censors out there. Do you think he will get better or possibly traded? If you have him, would you try to trade him? I think Tyus Jones got bailed out by the DeLon Wright injury. Otherwise, I actually wrote him up in my waiver wire column last week as a drop. I do not see the upside for Tyus. There's the big eyes from you, Noah. Please take it away, man. Where am I making a crazy claim here? Please make the case for Tyus J.
Man, he's not an easy guy to make a case for, because you're right. He hasn't been very good at all. I think you saying as a drop was like a little bit, it's like something that I hadn't considered. It's not like, wow, that's ridiculous. How dare you say you dropped Tyus Jones? It's more like dang, are we at that point where we have to talk about dropping Tyus Jones? Like streaming superstar for the last 2 years that finally got to be the point guard in his own team. And he's been like not good, especially a few games where he just like hasn't scored the ball. I would definitely try and trade him before I drop him, but I think like you may have to consider dropping him. I don't think that's like too outlandish of a claim now that I'm actually processing it. I don't think that the Wizards trade him unless like a team really wants a backup point guard and can give Washington some picks and they're committed to that. I just don't really necessarily see that happening. So I just have to hope that he will get better. How much better? Is he going to be the guy that he was whenever John Morant was out in Memphis? No, I think he's shown that that's just not what's going to happen. He's not going to average whatever his numbers were in Memphis, but I would imagine better value. How much better? It's kind of hard to say because it just hasn't been very good so far.
Yeah, it's been disappointing. It was surprising when I was, looking this up last week, but his usage with Washington is actually lower than it was with any of his years in Memphis when he was primarily a backup. Now he's the starter with Kuz and Poole, two guys who need the ball in their hands, and it just hasn't been good for Tyus J. Moving on. Nomad T, otherwise known as Bender from Futurama. Good day, Noah and Zach. What you think Skylar Mays and Big Mac rest of season? What's up with Wiggin? And did you guys picking up Miles Bridges? There is a lot to unpack here. I think this is 4 questions from you, Nomad T. I think Nomad T, his last name is something that we had to censor out as well. That's why we just go with the T instead of the full last. I don't even want to know what it is. All right. What do you think of Skylar Mays? And is this over my head here? Who is Big Mac?
It took me a second. I think it's Bismack Biyombo. That's my guess, but I'm not like 100% sure.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Well, what do you think of Skylar Mays? And I love Big Mac. I love that nickname.
Yeah.
What do you think? Because he's got the sauce, right? So, what do you think of Skylar Mays and Big Mac, man?
You've got a nice pupil in Nomad taking on your nicknames. One like the master or the student becomes the teacher. Like he thought of one that you didn't even think of. Like that was impressive. But rest of season, Skylar Mays and Bismack Biyombo, Big Mac. Rest of the season probably not great. At least isn't much for Skylar Mays. When Simons comes back, he's going to lose all his value. But until then, Skylar Mays seems like a really good option and has been. Bismack Biyombo, we'll see what happens when Xavier Tillman gets back because that'll kind of impact things. If Biyombo's been awesome, but when Tillman's back, is Tillman going to be the starter or are they just going to roll with the hot hand? That impacts things. And if he starts to have a couple bad games in a row, do they go back to Xavier Tillman? So his role isn't safe, but I think as long as he's a starter, going to keep giving up or putting up big numbers. Andrew Wiggins, man, like I said a couple questions ago, I have him in every redraft league I'm in, and it has been incredibly disappointing. I hope he can get it back on track with Steph out, just having to take on a larger role offensively. But we'll see. I imagine.
About Andrew Wiggins, I know he was one of your guys going into the season, and I lauded you for that because Andrew Wiggins really has been he's been a glue guy for Golden State for years now. But yeah, it's been disappointing. He's an interesting guy. He was in that same article that I said drop Tyus Jones. I also said drop Andrew Wiggins. I'm not entirely sure where the improvement comes from, but I love reading other people's content. Henry Weinberg from RotoWire today put out an article saying, go and pick up Andrew Wiggins. He's a buy low candidate. So I thought that was very interesting. Is he somebody that you are, putting out maybe the worst guy on your team and saying, hey, can I get Andrew Wiggins off of you? Is he a guy that you're actively looking to grab? Are you scouring the waiver wire to see if he gets dropped, or is he somebody that you just want no part of?
Well, like I said, I have him in all the leagues, so nobody's going to be dropping Andrew Wiggins in my leagues. He is going to be rostered. But I think, he is a guy that I would probably try and buy low on if I can, just because he has been very frustrating, but it can't really get worse. And I would rather take the upside swing and try and get to the point where I'm giving up the worst player on my team and getting a guy who, was drafted probably, I want to say round 7 or 8, and then has upside to be even better. I think I made my case a million times during the offseason about him being a top 25 guy for the first month of last season, and then it kind of tailed off. And it seems like it just never got back on, even after a full offseason to get healthy. Hopefully it does. I mean, I'm not dropping him anywhere, but I would probably try and buy low if I can.
All right. Excellent. So we're going to go ahead and pivot one more time. We are coming, I know we started a little bit late today. We are coming up on the 10-minute window here before 5 o'clock. We're just going to go ahead and pivot one more time to the biggest games of the evening. Noah, are there any streamers? I know there's multiple injuries we're talking about here. Are there any streamers you're targeting tonight? I know we talked about the Nets, Cam Thomas out, Ben Simmons out. Nets and Magic tonight. Anybody in that game that you're interested in?
Nets and Magic. If I'm not mistaken, I have to check to make sure. Lonnie Walker, I think, was questionable, or if he was probable. I don't really remember, but he's a guy that I think included in a couple like pickup of the day articles, kind of saying like, hey, like keep an eye on this guy. Since Cam Thomas got hurt, he's been really good. I think he was pretty bad in their last game actually, but he left briefly with an injury. If he's able to play, he's a guy that I might be interested in, especially knowing that Ben Simmons is going to be out for a good bit longer. But as far as other like streaming options, there really isn't many. Like both of those teams have kind of their solid rotations, and unless there's just an injury I'm missing that would open up a ton of minutes, I think Lonnie Walker is probably the only guy I'd really consider.
All right. And here's a guy that has gotten a lot of scrutiny, I think rightfully so, for the system that he has implemented with the Clippers, the system that has yielded them 0 wins in 4 games. What do you think about the Clippers tonight? Does James Harden and his new team, do they get a win in Denver where the Nuggets are undefeated at Ball Arena?
I mean, goodness, everything is set up against them here, Zach. You weren't even like, hey, can the Clippers get a home win against the worst team in the NBA? You said, no, can they get a road win against the defending champs while they're still trying to figure things out? Nothing's gone right for them. No, like, I don't think that they do get a win. I think I'm not optimistic about this fitting well together and working out. Like, I don't think many people were able to like say based on fit, like talent. Yes. But fit, it's kind of hard to imagine it really working out. So, but I think it'll take at least 10 games before we figure out like, okay, like this is what this team can do well and make things work a little bit. And they're still early on in that process. So no, I don't think that they get a win. I do think, and this is just based on quotes and me buying into what people say, but Tyronn Lue is talking about James Harden being too polite with the ball and trying to be too passive and make things work with these other stars. So we could see James Harden go out there and be a little bit more aggressive in this game. But do I think that's a win? Ooh, no, I don't.
And James Harden, the lowest usage rating of his career, 13.5 points, 5 rebounds, 4.2 assists in 31 minutes. It has been brutal so far. If you have Harden, obviously you're going to get nothing good in return for him. Are you playing him? Is he somebody that you are considering benching on a busy slate? Or is he somebody that has to be in the starting lineup?
If you have incredible depth, then maybe you consider benching him, but I'm not going to bench him because you probably spent at least a 4th round pick on him. I'd imagine a 3rd, or you're we'll call me a silly goose that didn't set a queue and overnight auto drafted James Harden in the 2nd round. In which case I will be having him in my lineup in the hopes that this eventually kind of works out and it isn't one of the worst picks I've ever made.
All right. There you have it from Silly Goose Noah. All right. We got time for a few more questions here. All right. We've taken some questions from Liver already. So now time to take question from Onions. Should I try and move PJ Washington before Bridges comes back? And if so, who should I target around his value? What are we doing with PJ Wash?
Yeah, I think I might try and shop around and see what I can probably get. Just again, depends on the league, depending on how people value him. If you can really fool somebody into saying, hey, look at what PJ Washington has done this year, and they don't even pay attention to the fact that Miles Bridges is coming back and going to cut into that, then maybe you can. But I'd imagine that most other managers are going to kind of have that in mind, that the idea that he'll take at least a little bit of a minutes cut. But if you're able to do something where you can get around like a top 100 guy for PJ Washington, then sure, I would probably do that trade, but I'm not going to just sell him off take what I can get because he's going to be off when Miles Bridges comes back. Because I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case here. I don't think Miles Bridges comes back and PJ Washington is, playing 15 minutes per game. Like I'd still, 25 minutes per game off the bench. They have a nice rotation of forwards there with Gordon Hayward and PJ Washington, Miles Bridges, even Brandon Miller in there. So we'll see what the minutes look like. I would imagine that Miles Bridges takes a few games to really get back into the swing of things, and then they play him big minutes. But yes, maybe try and move off of him, but I wouldn't sell too low.
And do you expect, health aside, do you expect Miles Bridges to face any sort of suspension or additional missed time this season? Or does it seem like he is all systems go from this point forward?
It seems like the NBA isn't going to do anything else. There isn't going to be any other suspensions. If a report comes out within the next few days, honestly, I would be kind of surprised. It would be kind of weird of the NBA to get really close to the end of the 10-game suspension and say, oh, by the way, here's this too. I would think that they would communicate that earlier on, but who knows? But as of now, it does not seem like there's going to be anything else. So as soon as the 10-game suspension is up, I think it's this Friday that he's able to play again. Will be the first game that he's eligible. So maybe they limit his minutes in his first game back, but I don't foresee anything else happens unless, obviously, which we have no idea, something else comes out against him, in which case, obviously another punishment would probably be coming, but we do not know. So.
All right. And more of our usuals here from the Casual Economist. Better rest of season, Kawhi Leonard or Mikal Bridges in a cat league? What do you think here? You going Kawhi or you going Mikal? Pick your fighter.
Man, I think I might go Mikal Bridges, which I know he was drafted earlier, so it's not like some outlandish claim, but he hasn't been very as good as maybe we expected. But I think we've talked about this multiple times. You're drafting him with the idea that he's playing 82 games. You're drafting Kawhi with the idea that he's playing probably 55 to 60 at the most. But his numbers have also been kind of down since James Harden joined the team. I can't, unless they figure things out, and really it's going to take somebody taking a back seat, whether it's Russ or James Harden, arguably both, in order for Kawhi and Paul George to put up the numbers that we really expected them to before the season. So no, I think I'd rather go Mikal Bridges production, which we kind of know what we're going to get, and he'll play a bunch of games, versus Kawhi, who's been kind of down since the Harden trade, and hopefully they can figure it out, but I'm not convinced that it's going to result in Kawhi being dominant.
And any concerns for Mikal Bridges over the last week, shooting below 40%? Is this just a cold snap for him from a typically efficient guy? Any real reason for concern there? And his minutes are down a little bit too, even with some key injuries. 32 minutes a night. Any concern about the playing time or the efficiency for Bridges, or is this just a blip on the radar?
The playing time, it may actually not go back up. I mean, if this is kind of what they've been doing, then that might just be what it is. So it's what we got to deal with. The efficiency, I would imagine, is better. I think he has taken on a larger offensive role, which we saw him do last season when he was traded to the Nets. But now with Cam Thomas out of the fold because of the injury, he's just naturally taken more shots. I think he had a game the other day, I don't remember what day I was blurbing it, and he shot 11 for 29 or something, just shooting the ball a lot, not in a bad way. I mean, some of it is bad because the percentage has been down, but he's just having to shoot the ball a lot. So it'll get better. How much better, I don't know, but it will get better. So the concern may be a little bit about his minutes, but it's hard to argue with the fact that that might even help him play, or help him more than usual to play 82 games. If he was going to do that anyway, whatever, but now it'll help him be able to do that even easier, we'll say.
I think it's close between these guys for me. I think I would probably give the edge to Kawhi. If we're talking per game, I think I'd prefer Kawhi. But if we're talking about who's going to play more games and give you the best total value rest of season, I think it's not even arguable that it'll be Mikal Bridges. All right. So we are right here at 5 o'clock. Noah, any parting words today? Any big fantasy takeaways? Any wisdom you wish to impart on the audience before we end this live stream?
Oh man, I wish I had a ton of parting words. I know you do this every week, and I'm just always never prepared to actually give away any sort of advice or anything like that as we wrap up this Q&A. But that was my attempt at using a lot of words to try and think. I still have nothing, so I'm just going to throw this back to you and let you close this out.
No, what's your favorite Star Wars movie? I'm going to throw you a softball here, so you can give us something that real easy off the top of your head.
Favorite movie is Rogue One, but I think of like the Skywalker saga. Favorite is probably Revenge of the Sith.
My man, that is my favorite too. Showing some love for the prequels.
Let's go.
Absolutely, I love it, dude. All right, so you have clearly heard the tale. The tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, of course.
Indeed.
Okay. Noah, we will close it out with that. Have a great week. Everybody, thanks for coming in and dropping your questions. We will be back here next Tuesday as usual. Have a great rest of your week, guys.
Yep. See you guys.